That's what my dad said after I spent 6 hours on a cramped flight, burned through half a paycheck, and showed up at their door with gifts in hand. Not a welcome home, not even a hug. Just that. And then my sister, already zipping up her duffel bag, looked down at her kids and said, "Don't wipe your snot on him, boys, like I was the family pet." They all laughed until I opened my mouth. It started the way these things always do, with my phone ringing way too early. 6:03 a.m. to be exact. I was half asleep, saw Dad flash on the screen, and felt that familiar churn in my stomach. With him, it's never a "how are you" call. It's a transaction waiting to happen. I should have let it go to voicemail, but I didn't. His voice was unusually soft. That should have been a red flag. He said it would mean a lot if I came home to Seattle for the holidays. Everyone would be there. It was a full family gathering. "We miss you," he added. Lies wrapped in silk. Against every instinct I had, I said yes, because that's what I do. Or more accurately, that's what I was trained to do. I booked a flight out of Miami, cleared my schedule at work, and dropped a disgusting amount of money not just on the flight, but on a rental car he swore I wouldn't need. Bought gifts for the kids too. The kind with batteries that parents hate. I figured if I was going to be the family mule, I might as well deliver the sugar. Snow greeted me the moment I stepped out of SeaTac. The wet, slushy kind that immediately soaks your socks and reminds you you're not in Florida anymore. My Uber crawled through the same neighborhood I grew up in, only now it felt like a museum exhibit I'd been forced to fund. They lived in that house, but I paid for it, literally. Mortgage, internet, utilities. My sister hadn't had a job in a year. My parents were always between pension payments or waiting on that Social Security bump. Every excuse under the sun while I covered everything in silence. Walking up the stairs, part of me still expected a hello, a smile, maybe even a hug. Pathetic, right? Instead, Dad opened the door, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "You'll be watching your sister's kids. We're heading to Leavenworth." I froze. Thought maybe I misheard, but no. He turned away like I was the mailman, already shouting to my mom to pack his gloves. My sister walked in next, dragging her duffel and practically glowing. The two little monsters were already suited up, stomping snow into the carpet. She looked at me, grinned, and threw out that little gem. "Don't wipe your snot on Uncle Milo, kids." They laughed like it was a live taping of Family Dysfunction, the sitcom. My mom even chimed in from the kitchen as if that counted as a laugh track. And that's when I spoke. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't flinch. I just started listing every single bill I'd covered the past 3 years. The mortgage, my sister's overdue credit card, the car note she defaulted on twice but never told anyone about. I talked about the months I lied to my landlord just so I could send money to them for groceries. I explained calmly that I was the reason the light still worked in that house, that the water ran, that the fridge wasn't empty. And then I dropped the hammer. Their resort reservation canceled 3 days ago, fully refunded on the credit card he forgot was in my name. My dad hadn't noticed because he stopped opening his own mail years ago. The flight's gone too, rerouted, non-refundable. The airline credits sitting in my account under a name he doesn't even know I use. My sister froze, laughed nervously, pulled up the app, watched her face change from cocky to clammy in real time. My mom leaned over her shoulder, blinked hard, started asking questions no one could answer. My dad stood there, red-faced, still trying to figure out if this was some elaborate prank. Then I placed a folded letter on the dining table. Nothing fancy, just a simple notice from the bank. Your automatic mortgage payments have stopped. Not a threat, not a foreclosure, just a polite, "Let's catch up soon." Turns out I'd stopped covering the house 3 weeks earlier. Wanted to see how long it would take them to notice. Spoiler, they didn't. My sister started pacing, dialing the resort, begging someone to reinstate the reservation. My mom panicked. "How could you do this to us?" she asked. "After everything we've done for you." That part made me laugh. They really thought they'd done something for me. Then the doorbell rang. Nobody moved. They weren't expecting anyone. But I was. I'd timed this to the hour. "Relax," I said. "It's not the bank. Not yet." My dad opened the door, and in walked a woman in a dark coat, clipboard, and hand badge around her neck. "Hi, I'm Erin with Child Protective Services." And just like that, the sitcom was canceled. You could hear the silence shift, like air pressure dropping before a storm. My sister, who 5 minutes ago had been all smug jokes and ski lodge dreams, went ghost white. Her eyes locked on the badge, and I swear I saw her soul try to exit through her forehead. Erin stepped in all calm authority and introduced herself again. "This is a follow-up visit," she said casual, like she was commenting on the weather. "I'm just here to take a look around and confirm a few details." Nobody moved, so I did. "Come on in," I said. "Let me show you the kitchen." My mom made some kind of strangled noise behind me, but she didn't stop me. Neither did my dad. Maybe they were still trying to calculate how the hell I'd managed to pull this off. I didn't say much as Aaron walked the place. I didn't have to. The house told its own story. Dirty dishes piled up in the sink. Wine bottles still on the counter from whatever midweek meltdown had happened. Peanut butter smeared on the wall by the dining table like it was part of the decor. When Aaron asked to see the nursery, I simply stepped aside and let her peek in. My sister, suddenly remembering she was a mom, tried flipping the script. She started talking a mile a minute. "We're just packing, that's why it's messy, normally it's spotless. I always leave detailed instructions. We'd never go on vacation without a plan." Milo. He said he was fine watching them. She turned to me like we were co-conspirators. Like I'd nod and say, "Yeah, we planned this together." I didn't even blink, just looked at Aaron, calm, steady. Aaron asked, "Do you have any messages or written confirmation that you agreed to babysit?" I handed her my phone. No theatrics. The most recent text from my sister. "Can you pick up that shampoo you brought me last time from Miami?" That was it. No mention of babysitting, no schedule, no consent, just another take this, do that message sent like I was Amazon Prime with a pulse. My dad jumped in next, flailing for a lifeline. He started tossing out the greatest hits playlist. Milo's always helped out. This is no different. We've just been under a lot of pressure, financial, emotional, My health, her mental state, stress. I stayed quiet until Aaron asked if I helped financially. Then I opened my banking app. 3 years of transfers, 5 figures, every single month. Mortgage, groceries, utility bills, even my sister's phone plan. I watched Aaron nod as she scribbled something down. She didn't comment, just asked to check upstairs where the kids were. When she left the room, my mom finally cracked. "What is this really about?" she asked, voice low, sharp. "Are you trying to destroy this family because you feel, underappreciated?" She said it like I was a brat throwing a tantrum over not getting a gold star. I looked at her, not angry, just tired. "Did it ever occur to you," I said slowly, "that I didn't mind helping? That it wasn't the money that broke me. It's that the second I walked through that door, I wasn't a guest, I was a tool. You didn't fly me here to see me. You flew me here to disappear." Nobody spoke, not a breath. "I've been your emergency contact, your bailout fund, your babysitter, your scapegoat for years. And I kept showing up. Every ignored birthday, every call you skipped until you needed a favor. And this little stunt was the final insult." Then I pulled out the final receipts. "I called the mortgage company already. They'll be sending a reassessment. I'm removing my name from everything. If you want to keep the house, you'll need to qualify on your own." Spoiler, they wouldn't. "And the car I co-signed for," I added, "that'll be repossessed by the end of the month. She's already 2 payments behind, I just didn't report it. Until this morning." I could see the blood drain from my sister's face all over again. "And the utilities shut off in a week if the billing info isn't updated." They just stood there, silent, like a row of mannequins watching their reflection crack. And then the final piece. I didn't come here to babysit. I came to close a chapter. I've been planning this move for over a year. I bought a condo, downtown, 1 bedroom, paid in full, nobody else on the deed. I move in tonight. My mom's mouth opened then closed. My sister backed into the couch, nearly sitting down on one of her kids. My dad didn't even make eye contact. Aaron came back downstairs, clipboard in hand. She gave them a polite but firm checklist, what needed fixing, what CPS would be following up on, what could happen if things didn't change. She wasn't dramatic. She didn't need to be. The words "we'll be checking back in" hit harder than any threat could. She left. And I finally picked up my suitcase, still sitting by the door like a dog waiting for attention. Nobody asked me to stay. No one said, "You're right." No one promised to fix it. So I left. No speech, no slamming doors. Just a man walking away from a house he no longer owed anything to. My new condo was exactly what I wanted: clean, cold, silent. Still smelled like fresh paint. The fridge was empty. The bed had no sheets. The view from the 10th floor overlooked the city like a promise. "You made it out." I dropped my suitcase in the closet and just stood there. For the first time in years, nobody was asking me for anything. No textings, no guilt trips, no emergencies dressed up as love. Just me. I slept like a rock. The kind of sleep you don't get when you're carrying 4 other people's lives on your back. The next morning, I made coffee and watched the city come to life below me. Around 11:00 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was my sister, text only. "Can I come by alone? I want to talk, no fighting." I stared at it for a second, then another text. "Not coming to fight. I just want to say what I should have said a long time ago. Please, 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, again I sent her the address. She looked smaller somehow. Not just physically though, the hoodie swallowed her shoulders like armor, but emotionally like the scaffolding of defiance and entitlement she'd built her life on had finally buckled. I watched her from the 10th floor window, arms folded, shifting from foot to foot like she couldn't decide if she was here to apologize or run. I buzzed her in. She didn't speak right away, just stood inside the doorway of my condo, eyes scanning the space like it was a showroom she didn't belong in. New couch, clean walls, boxes still stacked in one corner, a half-unpacked bookshelf. The kind of mess that comes from building something, not from chaos. "This is really nice," she finally said, like it surprised her. Like she couldn't believe I'd managed to carve out something this calm, this mine. I didn't answer. Just went to the kitchen, poured 2 coffees, handed her one. She took it with both hands like it might burn or break. Then she sat, quietly, waiting. That alone told me something had cracked. She didn't waste time, no build-up, no blame shifting. "I'm sorry," she said, and not in the performative, passive-aggressive way I'd heard my entire life. She meant it, or she was really good at pretending. Either way, I let her talk. She apologized for everything, for assuming I'd always say yes, for planning to dump her kids on me without asking, for treating my money like it came from a magic tap labeled brother, for laughing when I walked in the door like I was the joke. She said it felt normal until I stopped playing along. And then it felt like betrayal. Not what they'd done to me, what I'd done to them. That was the mindset. That was the sickness. I listened. And when she finished, I said the only thing I could, I appreciate it. I needed to hear that. But I didn't hand her forgiveness like a glass of water. I told her that apologies don't fix patterns, that trust is rebuilt in silence, in effort, not in speeches, that I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't blind either. She nodded. She didn't cry, she didn't argue. She said she was getting a hotel room for the night, said she wasn't going back to the house, said she was thinking about getting her own place. Part-time work had come up at a daycare, she was considering it. I didn't tell her good job. I didn't tell her proud of you. I told her you should. Before she left, she looked around again, like she was trying to memorize something. A future she might still build. "Thank you," she said. No hug, no fake closeness, just that. And then she was gone. For a minute, I stood by the window watching her disappear into the gray. And for a flicker of a second, I thought, maybe something's changed. Maybe she really gets it. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer, but the voicemail popped up immediately. It was my father. His voice was low, cold. The kind of cold that isn't sad, it's dangerous. "If you think this is over, you're dumber than I thought. You want to humiliate us? You'll see what that feels like." I listened to it twice. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. This wasn't over. It never is with people like him. He didn't just want to reclaim the control, he wanted to drag me back in, break me down, make me pay. The guilt, the money, the labor, it had never been enough. Now walking away was the insult he couldn't forgive. So I did what I'd been preparing to do for months, quietly, methodically. I opened the envelope marked Reclaim. Inside were printed copies of every wire transfer I'd ever made on their behalf, every mortgage payment, every utility bill, every co-signed document, bank statement, and car insurance premium. All stapled and labeled date by date. Not for legal action yet. Just proof. Because people like my father don't remember what they owe. They only remember what they feel entitled to. The next morning, I visited the mortgage lender. The payments had already stopped weeks ago, but now I made it official. I signed the form that removed my name from the property completely. No more backup plan. No more lifeline. I didn't want the house repossessed. I wanted them to own it. The late fees, the calls, the crumbling credit score, the pressure, the truth. I walked out of that office lighter than I'd felt in years. Back at my apartment, I logged into my bank account. I had 3 automated transfers scheduled for next week. Grocery delivery, sister's car insurance, family phone plan. 2 clicks each, canceled. Let them feel it. Let them sit in it. Let the silence grow heavy. Later that day, my mom texted. One of those long, meandering, manipulative sermons dressed as sentiment. Family shouldn't be transactional. Cutting people off isn't love. You've always been the glue. I didn't reply. A few hours later, a group text came in. My dad, my sister, my mom, all trying to shift the narrative. We sacrificed everything for you growing up. You're punishing us for a misunderstanding. We're still family. I almost laughed, but I didn't, because I was too busy watching the final domino fall. 3 months ago, I'd submitted a report. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet request to a government housing program. A review of how financial aid was being distributed in multi-adult households with minor dependents. I included documents, proof that my money was subsidizing a house full of neglect, children being left alone, programs being gamed, safety nets being abused. It triggered an audit, and while they were busy writing me long texts about betrayal, they received a letter, official, cold. We regret to inform you, subject to investigation. At 10:23 p.m., my sister texted me just one word. Why? I didn't answer. Because the truth was simple, they dragged me across the country to babysit their mess, and I simply handed it back to them one piece at a time. By the time New Year's rolled around, the group chat had gone dark. No more guilt-drenched paragraphs. No calls, no veiled threats, just static. I knew better than to think that meant peace. Silence with my family was never surrender. It was regrouping. They were circling, licking their wounds, waiting for the next opening. But I didn't care. I had boxes to unpack, dishes to buy, rugs to unroll, the bones of a new life to build. So when the knock came soft and unexpected, I paused coffee and one-hand knife halfway through a roll of tape. It wasn't aggressive, not like my dad would have knocked. It was hesitant almost, polite. I opened the door. My mom stood there, alone. She wore a thick coat like armor, her hands buried deep in the sleeves. Her eyes were red, not fresh crying, but that washed-out kind of tired that comes from losing every battle and realizing you've run out of weapons. She didn't speak right away, just looked past me into the apartment like she needed to see what peace looked like before remembering how to talk. "Can I come in?" I didn't say anything, I just stepped aside. She didn't sit. She didn't touch anything. Just stood by the window staring out over the city. "They got the letter," she said finally. "The official one." She didn't have to explain. I knew which one. The audit. The investigation. The unraveling. She told me my sister's car had been repossessed that morning. That my dad had spent 2 days calling old friends trying to borrow money, trying to fix what couldn't be fixed with a phone call. "No one's picking up," she said. Then she told me why she came alone. Said if my father had come, it would have been a disaster. Said he was angry not at me for what I did, but because I did it clean. No drama, no fights, just a surgical cut. He said, "You think you're better than us now," she added. I didn't answer, because I didn't. But I was done being less than. She turned from the window and looked at me, and for the first time in years, she didn't look like a mother. She looked like a woman who had no idea what to do next. And then she asked, "What do we do now?" Not "how could you?" Not "you ruined us," just that. And God, I almost softened. Almost. "You start over," I said. "Live within your means. Stop treating people like safety nets." Then I added the part that mattered most. "If you ever want me in your life again, it'll be as a person, not a solution." She nodded once. No tears, no protests. Then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. No return address, no handwriting, just a check inside. It wasn't for everything, not even close. But it was real, signed, cleared. "It's all we have," she said. "We'll send more when we can." I didn't say thank you, I didn't say anything. Just placed it on the counter like I might with a flyer I wasn't ready to throw out yet. She turned to go. No hug, no dramatic exit. Just a quiet final line. "Take care." And then she was gone. I never saw my father again. Not in person, not online, not even a missed call. Because people like him don't apologize. They wait for the world to bend back to them. And when it doesn't, they pretend it never existed in the first place. 3 months passed. And then an email. From my sister. No subject line, no guilt, no demands. Just a photo. Her kids standing in front of a small beige apartment complex. One of them holding a set of keys. A doormat that said, "Home." No chaos behind their eyes. No tension in their shoulders. She didn't write a speech. Just "thank you, even if you hate me." I stared at it for a long time. Did I hate her? No, I just didn't trust her. So I didn't answer. Not right away. I gave it 3 weeks. Then I replied with a photo of my own. The city skyline at night, taken from my kitchen window. Caption, "No hate, just boundaries." That was it. Not forgiveness, not reunion. Just clarity. The cycle was broken. Not because they woke up one day changed, but because I stopped being the fuel that kept the machine running. And for once there was no explosion, no confrontation, just stillness. Which after years of fire drills felt like revolution. Mini update 1 month later. The apartment finally feels like mine. Furniture fits. The fridge stays full. My name doesn't light up on anyone's phone as their emergency contact. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. Same handwriting as the check, no return address. Inside, another check. Small again, but steady. And a note. We're doing all we can. I didn't cash it, not yet. Because words are easy. So are guilt checks. I'm watching to see if effort becomes a habit or just another performance. My sister's kept her word. Still working at the daycare. Sent another photo this one of the kids on a couch in what looks like an actual living room. Rug on the floor, coloring books spread out, peace. We still don't talk directly. Just quiet updates. That's enough. I don't need a parade. I don't need apologies. I just need distance. And she's finally giving me that. As for my dad, still nothing. No text, no smoke signal, no staged intervention. And honestly, that silence suits me just fine. It happened on a Tuesday night, late. The kind of late where the city has finally exhaled and the traffic below sounds like a lullaby instead of a threat. I was sitting on the couch, tea in one hand, blanket half draped over my legs, some dumb crime doc playing on mute, when it hit me. I laughed. Not at the TV, not at a meme, just nothing. Just this little burst of joy that bubbled up out of nowhere and spilled out of my chest before I could smother it. That's when I realized something had changed. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis. I wasn't bracing for a phone call that would turn my life upside down or drain my account before payday. I wasn't someone's safety net backup plan or guilt-ridden ATM. I was just me, alone, free, unbothered, and it felt incredible. People talk a lot about closure. They say you have to confront the person, get the apology, hear the I was wrong, tie a pretty bow on the trauma, and put it on a shelf like a finished story. But here's the truth. Closure isn't always loud, or dramatic, or even mutual. Sometimes it's just silence. Sometimes it's the absence of chaos. A fridge you filled yourself, a couch you picked, a knock that doesn't come, a message that doesn't demand, a night that ends without dread. I haven't heard from my dad since the voicemail. I doubt I ever will. Because he wasn't built for accountability. He was built for control. And when he lost that, he lost interest. Good. Let him rot in the echo chamber he built for himself. Let him rewrite history for whatever friends still answer his calls. I'm not playing PR for my own villain anymore. My mom sends the occasional check now. They're small, not performative exactly, but cautious. Like she's testing the line between guilt and reparation. The last one came with a note. We hope you're doing well. We're working on things. I still haven't cashed any of them. I probably will, eventually. But I want to see if this pattern holds. If this is growth or just a new version of manipulation with better handwriting. No rush. My sister's texts have gotten shorter, less emotional, more grounded. Like she's trying not to fall back into old patterns. Like she's trying to become someone else entirely. Her kids look better in every photo. Less anxious, less wired. There's a couch now, a rug, some half-done school projects taped to the wall. In one picture, her youngest is holding up a piece of paper that says, "My mom got a job," in colorful crayon. The A is backward and it nearly broke me. She's still not asking for anything, not even praise. And maybe that's the biggest shift of all. I think about that house sometimes, the one I paid for, the one I walked away from. I wonder if the heat ever got turned back on, if the fridge is empty again, if the walls still echo with blame and denial and selective memory. But I don't miss it. Because a house is just a building. It's what you do with it that makes it home. And I finally built mine. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, out of choice. So yeah, that's the story. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't cinematic. Nobody got hauled away in handcuffs. There was no screaming match on the front lawn or viral video. There was just truth and consequences. The kind people like my family thought would never catch up with them. But they did. One flight, one cancellation, one clipboard at the door, one boundary at a time. Now I wake up when I want. I cook for one. I answer only the texts I choose to. The silence. It isn't empty. It's earned. So if you're wondering whether I feel bad, whether I think I went too far, whether I'm the villain in their story now, let me be clear. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped being the one holding it up. Story 2. I was urged to attend a family reunion by my parents. My mother told me we were going on a family vacation when I arrived. Look after the dog. The laughter in the room erupted. It's important for the family, my uncle continued. I simply nodded. They attempted to take $4,000 out of my card 2 days later, but I resisted. My dad then wrote, "Be serious." Grinning, I mailed the message along with $50. I'm not a family. Then I received 53 texts in around 2 hours till They pleaded with me to attend. My dad hadn't contacted me in 2 months. Suddenly, he calls and announces that there will be a family gathering. If you were present, it would mean a lot. "We're still a family, Kevin," was the final line of one of my mom's lengthy texts. Laura then sent me a private message. "Just come, Kev, please." It typically indicates that something went horribly wrong when they all band together like that. My initial assumption was that someone had been arrested, killed, or was about to die. Uncle Rick is constantly involved in things he shouldn't be, so I even looked up his name again on Google. I thus arrive on Saturday evening. My childhood home and living room are the same. They're all there when I open the door. Grandma, Rick, Laura, Dad, Mom, and even Madison. In fact, someone had set out refreshments and lit candles. It appeared to be a birthday celebration. Nobody appears depressed or anxious. I'm just thrilled. I take a seat. The room becomes silent. My mother gets up. When she believes she's going to be clever, she smiles. She says it as though it were a major statement. "Our family is on a vacation. Look after the dog." Then everyone bursts out laughing. As in laughing. Laura had already resumed looking through her phone. Rick is sipping his drink. "Well, someone has to stay behind," my dad adds, pointing to the dog. "It might as well be you," Uncle Rick continues. "The family will benefit from it." I gave a nod. I remained silent. I've always played that part. Arrive, give a nod. Take the action that no one else desires. They refer to it as being trustworthy. In actuality, it means that they rely on me to tidy up after their decisions, fix whatever that breaks, and be quiet while doing so. They were unaware that I received a fraud notice 2 days later. A $4,000 holiday package to Tulum was attempted to be booked using my car and my billing address. Of course, I canceled the charge. My dad texted an hour later. "Take it seriously. I used Venmo to send him $50. I'm not family," the message said. That was when it began. 2 hours and 53 messages. Laura said that I was overreacting. Madison remarked, "My mom said I was being dramatic." It was only a joke. Be less sensitive. Rick tweeted an emoji that said, "thumbs down." Grandma sent a text. "Kevin, really? Which one?" A little more than I anticipated. They detonated like if I had lit the house on fire, because I refused to allow them to take from me. I didn't answer. The dog I was now supposedly the guardian of slept beneath the kitchen table while I flipped my phone over and watched the screen light up repeatedly. Max is his name. The only one who actually appeared pleased that I was there was him. I began going through my old emails, receipts, debt notices, loan, co-signing, confirmations that I had forgotten I had signed at one time, and notes I had made to myself about who owing what, while they were all packing, purchasing swimwear, scheduling trips, and selecting appropriate Instagram captions. There were far more than I could recall. They believed they were keeping everything together. They believed me to be only a supporting character. They were unaware that I never allowed them to fall, which was the only reason any of them were still alive. However, I was tired of being the joke. That night, I didn't get any sleep. I wasn't upset, not quite yet. Simply remained still. I had a black coffee at my kitchen table. No sugar, no cream. Just like I used to do when I pulled over night shifts. Max the dog roamed about a little before settling down at the table next to my feet. He didn't be serious, didn't ask questions, and didn't advise me to loosen up. He simply laid there. I was looking at a spreadsheet at 3 in the morning. Names were in the column. The amount is in column B column. Notice what it was going to be used for family accounting is what I termed it. I had never before put everything in writing. It was simpler not to. When Laura believed her automobile was going to be repossessed, I mailed her $400. I took out the $8,000 loan while Uncle Rick's investment fund was struggling. He vowed that it will recover in half a year. 3 years have passed since then, and then there were the roof loan payments I made each month. Regularly and quietly. My parents never inquired about the resolution. They just realized that everything worked itself out. The sum exceeded my expectations by more than $40,000. I went through old texts and browsed. I located one from the previous year in which Madison requested permission to use my address for a job application for a brief period of time. Yes, I replied. A few months later, I discovered that she had put my name as a reference on a leasing agreement for an apartment that she had never paid rent on. I shut down the spreadsheet and took a long look at the wall. It didn't surprise me. I was simply worn out, weary of being both invisible and helpful at the same time. They were already sharing pictures from the airport the following morning. Dad was carrying his golf bag. Mom was leaning over everyone to take selfies, you know. The t-shirts they were wearing said family mode on. At 3:20 p.m., I actually chuckled to myself. Friday. I didn't recognize the Phoenix number that called me. I let the voicemail go. Then I received an email. Urgent loan verification was the subject line. Action must be taken immediately. It came from Anna, who worked at a bank I had never met in person. I took it open. They were verifying that a $25,000 personal loan had been made in my complete name and with my social security number. I had never utilized my work email for personal use. 3 weeks ago, money was moved to a new account in my name at the same bank branch that my dad uses. I went cold. Derek was the person I spoke with when I phoned the fraud department. I told him all I knew, which wasn't much, and he guided me through the account freezing procedure. Already I could see the direction this was taking. My information had been misused. Someone with experience. Someone with access. It didn't take me long to guess. I sent my dad an SMS. In my name, you took out a loan. No response. I waited. The typing bubble flickered and then vanished. After 6 hours, there was a call. The screen glowed with his name. There was stillness after I let it ring once, twice, and 3 times. A SMS at 9:47 p.m. When I return, we'll speak. Avoid overreacting. Overreact. This time it struck differently. As if I had swallowed everything for years, simply took a step toward the brink. I returned to my spreadsheet and created a new tab called What They Owe Me. Because they were no longer only stealing money. I was being taken by them. And I wasn't going to keep quiet about it this time. I had already submitted the fraud report by the time they arrived in Cancun. I also scheduled a legal consultation. I learned about it from a coworker, a specialist in situations of family fraud. I kept it a secret. I didn't make an internet post. I refrained from venting. I simply fed. Max continued to add to my tabs after returning from work. They sent pictures almost immediately, pictures of the group at the beach, drinks and selfies at sunset. Although I wasn't mentioned in any of them, Laura's stories allowed me to see them. At last, one had the caption, "Calm and peaceful beach with umbrella." I nearly took a screenshot, but I decided against it. The recollection was not worth it. Jasmine, the attorney, called me on Monday. She had verified it after looking over the paperwork. I had a good case because I had authorized the account, which had been created using actual ID information. I was struck by what she said next. Usually this doesn't happen suddenly. Kevin, someone has been abusing you for a long time. I was aware beforehand, I simply hadn't spoken it aloud that evening. Max and I strolled around the block. I stood there with the leash thinking about how foolish I had been, while he paused to bark at a squirrel. For believing they witnessed it, not for assisting them. They didn't. Only when they were in need did they notice me. They never inquired as to why I seldom took vacations or why whenever major plans arose I always had employment. They believed that I preferred to remain behind. They found me uninteresting. Or perhaps they had no thoughts at all. "Hey buddy, could you check the mail for a package?" Rick texted me Tuesday morning. "Maddie could have something." I didn't answer. Laura wrote on Wednesday, "Dad claims that he is unable to access the internet banking. He believes your number was used to reset the password. No response as of yet." I said nothing, even though they were already splitting at the edges. Not intentionally. Simply because I was unfamiliar with them. Responses. They shared a group selfie of themselves at a fancy restaurant on Thursday featuring the pineapple-shaped cocktails. "Family means everything, pineapple red heart," was the caption. I took a snapshot of that one just for me. My dad texted me again that evening. "Do you need to speak? Give me a call." I didn't. I wrote him a message instead. "You used my name to establish a bogus account. Now it's in the hands of a lawyer. We'll be in touch with you shortly." After appearing, the typing bubble vanished. Then nothing. I woke up the following morning to find 3 emails, 2 voicemails, and 19 missed calls. My mother, Laura, and someone I faintly recognized as Rick's new girlfriend, Jennifer, all sent one each. Though the tone varied, the message was the same in all of them. I was in charge of the vacation. I recognized then that they still didn't understand. They believed that this was a financial matter. They were unable to comprehend. It was about everything else. Years of serving as a backup, the default. When no one else was around, that person invariably showed up. They were drinking cocktails and fighting in hotel rooms over who had fouled up what login when Max barked at a jogger that morning, and I laughed for the first time in days. I did precisely what they requested me to do here, observing the dog and ensuring that they ultimately witnessed what transpires when the supporting character ceases to play. The texts slowed by Friday. I assumed they were either too proud to acknowledge how awful things had gone or too inebriated to protest. I stopped following their tales. I was no longer required to. From here, I could sense the unraveling. Laura left me a series of voicemails on Saturday morning. She did not engage in polite conversation, went straight in. "Did you actually call the bank to report Dad calmly?" I answered, "Sure." After a little silence, she attempted to spin it. "Family matters are involved. Lawyers and family matters are not involved." I had one question for her. "Were you aware of the account?" She ended the call. After that, no one else phoned. They began communicating indirectly instead. Screenshots, secondhand guilt. Madison sent a message. "They're going crazy. Would you please stop whatever you did?" Rick contacted me. He hadn't spoken to me personally in years unless he was in need. "This is being exaggerated by you. Real men deal with things directly." With the caption, my mom shared a picture of a fuzzy sunset. All we needed was a quiet respite. Not one of them apologized. Jasmine, the attorney, continued to move in the meanwhile. The money was put on hold. A fraud inquiry was initiated by the bank. A case number was given to me. I said, she said, "Kevin, this is going to be huge. Would you like to file charges?" "Not yet," I informed her. A courtroom wasn't what I was wanting, unless they made it happen. I wanted them to sit with it to absorb the consequences of their actions without someone easing the blow. No one to pay the bill, justify it, or discreetly clean up the mess. A number I didn't recognize on a Tuesday morning. "Give me a screen grab. Early night cancellations have been confirmed." Not a message. Only the evidence. It was breaking the itinerary. Laura texted 10 minutes later. "We're heading home. Everyone is engaged in combat. I appreciate that." After staring at it for a while, I put my phone down again. Madison uploaded one of those blank screens with a tired back the next day, which is how I knew they had arrived. "Don't inquire." There was a rush of stillness after that. The doorbell then rang. They were all of them. Laura was still wearing sunglasses and flip-flops, and my dad was wearing his old jacket. Rick is holding a duty-free tequila bottle, as if it were a sacrifice for peace. The last person to gaze up at me was my mother. I pulled the door open. Max proceeded to sit beside the couch after giving one bark. They entered carefully as if they were unsure if they were permitted. Laura began by talking about stress and misconceptions and how Dad believed it was only a temporary account. Something concerning overreacting was murmured by Rick. As usual, my mom spoke most of the time. At last, according to my dad, things went out of control. After glancing at each of them, I turned to face Max, who sat still and dropped a noisy toy next to my foot. I explained that I was only taking care of the dog. No shouting, no talking. I refused to provide them a way back. If they wanted to, they would figure things out on their own. They remained there for a little while longer. And then they left one by one. No farewells, nothing but quiet. Behind them, doors close. After they left, Max chewed that squeaky duck as if nothing had happened, and I sat on the floor next to him and stroked behind his ears. Because I hadn't been the one who broke for once. They were the ones. There was no sense of relief in the quiet that followed their departure. It was as if the engine of a car that had been running for too long had been shut off. Still warm, it's still ticking, but at last it was silent. And in that silence, the noise level increased. The things they never uttered, not their voices. The years of running tabs but asking casually. They never inquired about my well-being unless it was related to anything they required. I assumed they would remain aloof for a time, take their shame, and turn it into some nebulous family legend. Years later, they may bring it up. "Do you recall Kevin's outburst about that one incident?" Rather, the following action was swift. The bank contacted me 2 days later. Formal tone. Very courteous. To verify that I hadn't opened the loan account, they required a copy of my statement. I emailed them everything. Timestamps, screenshots, the lawyer's contact information, and the credit report. Everything was out of date. Recorded, airtight. Rick texted me an hour later. You actually followed through on it. Not even an apology. No, we apologize. Only those 6 words. As if he was still in shock that I had left the part they had given me. I didn't respond. The pivot then arrived. They used side channels to try to get in touch with me. Suddenly, I received a message from my cousin Dan, claimed to be in the area and to be looking for a drink. We hadn't communicated for more than a year. Not after he ghosted me for 7 months after borrowing $600 for a little setback. I informed him that Max stayed at home on Thursday since he doesn't get along well with guests. A cardboard package arrived at my house. No address for return, not a message. A framed picture from a trip we made when I was 12 was inside. Maybe my dad in cargo shorts in Myrtle Beach. Madison is standing off to the side with a bag that is obviously not mine, and Laura is behind him making bunny ears. I didn't discard it even then. Along with the other documents, I placed it in the drawer. Jasmine called me over the weekend. She said that a review was prompted by the fraud complaint. As it happens, there were other warning signs than the loan. My credit was subject to additional investigations. One from a dubious payday lending firm and another from a Florida dealership. Both are using my name, my social, the same address. Denied, but not gone. She asked after pausing, "Are you certain that this is a recent occurrence?" No, I wasn't. I had ceased to check. I had long since given up hoping for better. I sat down that evening and obtained all of my credit reports. 2 years ago, then 4 years ago, I returned. I created a timeline. Compared unexpected favors they had requested, holidays and emergencies, and a trend emerged. They weren't only disorganized, they had a plan. When they needed leverage, they used my name, but they forgot it was mine. Make use of my credit, my quiet, and my sense of obligation, and allow it to disappear like furniture into the backdrop. The whole room changed now that I had even slightly moved. I received a new message on Monday morning. "Laura, once more, can we have a conversation? It's not about the cash, only us. You are missed." I looked at it for a long time. The closest thing I had to someone who had it before was her. However, when it was opportune, even she stopped asking questions. I didn't respond, not quite yet. I started a new document instead, not for them. It was known to me as what they think. Every time I paid the late charge, I made a note of it and kept it a secret. Every time I spoke with a debt collector, the situation got worse. Whenever I was the one carrying the burden behind someone else, I allowed them to think they were in control. Now, they believed me to be petty. I wasn't attempting to harm them, but they believed this was about getting even. I had just stopped allowing them to harm me. And this quiet. It was the sound of me emerging from the shadows they had cast about me, but they believed it to be punishment. They were now beginning to notice it. They simply weren't aware yet. I wasn't the same person when they returned home. I knew by the conclusion of that week that they would not provide an apology. Not at all. Eventually, they may speak the words or anything that sounds similar, but not because they intended to. They do it because I wasn't folding back into position as they had hoped, which made things unpleasant. Laura sent a one-line text message once again. "Do you now despise us?" I had no idea how to respond to that. It wasn't hate. It was quieter, colder, and no longer wanted anything from them. I never answered. Then Madison really wrote me to inquire whether I had deleted her from my family's Netflix account. It was time, but not because it was petty, a tiny bit at a time. I was removing myself off the network. I would let them to envelop me. The phone calls ceased. The messages became fewer. Ignorance wasn't something they were used to. They probably believed that the quiet would break at some point, that I would become weary and return. I had never been louder than I was now, yet they didn't get it. 2 weeks or so after they had returned home, I went outside one morning to see another box waiting for me. This time it's smaller. Not a word. There were keys inside. My old home key, the one I gave my folks years ago so they could just in case check on things. With it, an envelope that has been folded. Empty. Max. I stood there for a long time sniffing the box like if it had some candy. After that, I grabbed the keys and tossed them in the drawer along with the old vacation photo. They had returned them, but not in a meaningful way. No entrance, no notice. Dropped it off like a book being returned to the library. Jasmine gave me a call a couple of nights later. The inquiry was getting closer. Everything they required was at the bank. Now charges were feasible. She inquired once again whether I would like to pursue it. No, I told her. Since it had nothing to do with courtrooms or revenge, I had already prevailed. It had to do with the clear, solid, and unwavering distance I had created around myself. A place where no one took anything without permission. Where there was no guilt. Gift wrapped in the language of the family. Where my thoughts may be heard. Max sprinted to the door after parking at something outside. I did the same. Rick's automobile was visible down the street as I looked out the window. Simply sitting there. He did not appear, didn't knock. After a few minutes of waiting, they drove away. From now on, it would be that way. Avoid conflicts. No major reckoning. Simply be quiet and slow. Deconstructing. Telling their version of events they would continue living their lives. Perhaps one day, I will be the subject of Kevin's overreaction. How he evolved. How they made an effort. I pushed them aside as well. They never knew the complete story, so that was okay. What it required to keep them all together for years is something they'd never comprehend. The burden of each unseen disaster. They neglected to recall every favor. They wouldn't truly recognize me, but I did now. I sat down on the floor beside Max and gave him a back-of-the-ear scratch. They blamed me for letting go and destroyed the family. I simply said no at last. Silence is sometimes the loudest form of retaliation. They must coexist. A fresh upgrade. There was no communication for 3 weeks, nor a missed call, nor a text. It should have been serene, but it was the longest stillness I had ever experienced from them. Until the first knock it nearly did. On a Tuesday morning it arrived. Max was dozing off beneath the table as I was halfway through my second cup of coffee. It wasn't a desperate knock for him alone. A man in a blue suit was carrying a document when I opened the door. As an investigator for the bank, he disclosed his identity. "Mr. Myers," he replied. "I just have a few follow-up questions." I opened the door for him. Max walked around his legs as we sat at the table. The man opened the folder, spread out some papers, and indicated a part that was highlighted. As it happens, there were other loans in my name. 2 more were present. Kevin Myers Holdings. A phony LLC that was created 6 months ago is linked to one of them. The second was an online application for a small company loan, rejected because an incorrect job history was entered, both under my name. He said, "Whoever did this, they planned it, not merely made a mistake." I remained silent. I didn't have to. After 5 minutes, he departed. Stated that the DA's office could get in touch with them next. I felt it for the first time when I closed the door. Not melancholy, not treachery, only publicity. Like a wound that had been concealed for too long and was eventually exposed to sunlight. The second knock followed. Thursday evening about 8:00 p.m., I had no expectations. Max gave 2 barks before becoming motionless. Laura was the one. She didn't appear to have sucked. No cosmetics. She wore a sweatshirt over her shoulders and pulled her hair back. Similar to armor. Would it be possible for her to enter? I didn't respond. I simply moved out of the way. Without waiting, she took a seat at the table. The investigator had sat in the same chair 2 days prior. She inhaled. "That wasn't all," she continued. "I was aware of the account. I didn't stop it, but I had no idea it would go that far." As she spoke, her gaze was fixed on the table. I waited. "There's another thing," she said. 2 years ago, Grandma applied for a credit card. Call yourself by name. You won't notice, Mom said. I briefly closed my eyes. She continued. I wasn't here to correct it or explain it. I simply wanted to let you know. That was the only time she gave me a direct glance. Kevin, I believe you were the sole grown-up in the entire family. We all make advantage of that. After that, she departed. No cleaning, no apologies, no embrace. Just the facts. Down upon the table like shattered glass before leaving. I also didn't feel anything break this time. I simply swept it away. Story 3. To bring my family to my book launch, I paid $9,000 for airfare, meals, and a hotel block. Nobody showed up. My brother posted instead. I wish you well in your small pastime. Maya sent an SMS. Notify us of your publication date. Actually, I became enraged and subsequently stopped sending the rent assistance that I had been doing covertly for 3 years. The next morning, I got a call from their landlord. Not my lease anymore, I said, after a week. At least the ones where a relative embezzles someone's fortune or a mother-in-law insists on naming the child are examples of the exaggerated and embellished family stories that I have always seen on Reddit. No one really lives like this, I used to think when I read them. Then I experienced it. And now that my family is on the main page, I see that I was giving them too much credit. I was petty vengeful in one post and was brought up by narcissists. My book was the first step. I wrote silently for the most of my adult life. Weekends, after work nights, and trips that weren't really vacations. I didn't beg for attention or post about it. All I wanted to do was finish something important, something on which I could sign my name. When I was given the go-ahead for a legitimate book launch and eventually found a tiny publisher, I made the bold decision. Not large or ostentatious, yet significant. I hired a caterer and photographer and reserved a space in Manhattan. I assumed you only released your debut after I had taken care of everything, even if it was costly. Ohio-based flights, rooms in hotels, reservations for dinner. A total of $9 grand, and that my mother, my brother Daniel, and my Aunt Linda might be present to see the night I had spent more than 10 years preparing for. For their chairs, I even created tiny name cards. The day before to the occasion, I sent them a mail to make sure of everything. No response. I figured planes were delayed. Perhaps they were worn out. The actual day. I got up early. I looked at my phone. Nothing has changed. I was warned not to spiral by Janice. Claimed that they most likely arrive at the last minute and cause a commotion. They didn't. I waited. We repeatedly postponed the event's commencement. Janice continued to look at the front. I acted as though I was blind to the 3 name-tagged vacant chairs in the front row. They may as well have been grave markers. I finally had to stand up and talk. After that, I had a drink in a back room and eventually took another look at my phone. Daniel sent a message. I wish you well in your small pastime. Linda texted an hour later. When you are published, let us know. Actually, Mom. Nothing. Nothing. Either prior to or following. I spent a lot of time sitting there, furious, did not even mention it. I was embarrassed. More than that, though, I felt foolish because of what they were unaware of. I never disclosed to them that I had been paying a third of their rent each month for the previous 3 years. Without making any announcements or giving them any credit, they simply wired it to Victor, their landlord. Due of Daniel's inability to work, Linda's medical bills were unending. In the middle of a 5-star hotel room, my mother claimed she was handling things that night. I paid to gaze at the unopened gift bags I had left for them with the concierge. I emailed Victor after opening my laptop. I told him straight, I shall no longer be paying the rent for the renters at an address as of next month. Kindly let them know as appropriate. The following morning, Victor phoned and said he wanted to double-check. I informed him that my rent was no longer due. That was it. They were kicked out a week later. No apologies, no emails, no calls, nothing. Nothing, as if they had disappeared. I nearly thought that was the end of it. Not even 10 days had passed since the eviction notice was sent. I was finally starting to feel like I could get past it. I had quit continuously checking my phone and contemplating what I ought to have said the night after the book event. I even began writing the first draft of my second book. Writing again felt fantastic, as if I were taking back my mental space. And then there was a knock. It was around 9:30 p.m. Not casual, not a delivery time. It seemed purposeful and weighty, as if someone wanted everyone in the area to know they were there. I didn't have to guess that it was them when I opened the door. Linda was carrying a suitcase with a broken wheel that screamed whenever it moved, while Daniel was lugging a duffel bag like a freshman in college. As if she was already deciding where to sit, my mother stood behind them, with her arms folded and her gaze darting past me into the house. Daniel did not pause at all. We have only a week to be here. Right now, we have nowhere else. It's only transitory. I only gazed. It wasn't a shock. It seemed unbelievable that they dared to arrive at all, much less unexpectedly with bags, as like it were a weekend getaway of some sort. Then Janice rounded the bend. She did not inquire as to who it was. Upstairs, she could hear them. Don't cause a disturbance, she urged as she dragged me into the corridor. Only a week. We'll establish limits. I wished to keep them out. My entire being wants to lock the door and close it. However, I gave a nod. I'm still not sure why. Perhaps I needed to see how far they would go, so I informed them. After a week, you're off the hook, no conversation, huh? Fair, Daniel said, as if we were signing a contract. Without waiting for an invitation, they entered. It was off from the first night. Before he even inquired about his sleeping location, Daniel requested the Wi-Fi password. Due of her spinal condition, Linda requested the guest room. Daniel wound up on the couch in the living room. My mother grabbed the recliner and said passively that if I wanted them to sleep well, I should have set up appropriate sleeping arrangements. They consumed our food, modified the TV settings. Daniel grumbled that we lacked legitimate streaming subscriptions. Additionally, Linda informed Janice that the second night's chicken was overdone. In order for her Uber Eats driver to park in the driveway, my mom requested if I could relocate my car. The book event was not mentioned by any of them. Not once. It seemed to have never happened. No explanation, no apologies. Complete avoidance. For example, it may go away by the fourth day if they didn't bring it up. Janice was at her breaking point. She gave up trying to be the hostess. After work, she would head straight to our bedroom and remain there. Daniel was streaming basketball on my laptop while sporting my hoodie. He should leave my office, I told him. He remained still. He just stayed looking at me. Are you still upset about the entire book issue? That was it. I explained everything to them. That evening gave them till the end of the fifth day and then asked that they go. No justifications. Fine, Daniel said. In any case, he had plans and Linda spoke to Janice about the enduring bonds of family. My mother, however, sat peacefully as if she were unaffected by this. Day 5. It wasn't until after supper that they even packed. In order to assist them set up in our Anne Marie's apartment, Linda requested if we might lend them simply $1,000. Daniel spoke it as if it were clear. There are just 1,000. You earn a lot. No, I didn't yell, I informed them. I didn't elaborate. I just said no. Silently, they departed. Didn't bid farewell, did not express gratitude for the 5 days. Carrying whatever sympathy they still had, they just went out the door and down the street while toting that creaking luggage. Next time, don't let them in, Janice urged as she sat on the steps as soon as the door closed. The next time won't come. I didn't say that, though. They never even inquired about the success of the book launch, so I just stood there looking at the now empty guest room. At last, the house was tidy. They had left behind more than just the dishes and litter. The air was the cause. It didn't feel intruded. Once more, Janice slept asleep through the night. I wasn't preparing frozen food. I was cooking actual food. For once, the quiet in the house felt like parental. After that, Anne Marie called me. She does not belong to the typical trio. She has never interfered, enjoys a tranquil life, and resides in an apartment in Jersey with her animals. I thus thought someone had passed away when I saw her name on the screen. She spoke in a low, tense voice. Norman, they're present? They arrived carrying suitcases, so I didn't even have to inquire who they were. I had no idea what to do. You told them they could remain here, Daniel said. I almost burst out laughing. What is he? They only needed a few days off the grid, he added, and you were taking care of things. She let out a sigh. Half of my goods have already been consumed, and Daniel managed to set up my TV in Spanish. I inquired whether she required assistance in removing them. She promised to work it out. She did it every time. That seemed to be the end of it. My phone didn't buzz until after 11:45 p.m. 2 nights later. My mom, Linda, and Daniel were all on it, so we sent a group text. It began with Daniel. Hey, Maurice is going to be leaving. She is acting strangely. We will work things out, but merely to keep going, we need $1,000. We'll reimburse you. Then Linda arrived. We are not requesting a handout, only a loan. Consider it short-term. And finally, the icing on the cake. The love emoji was my mother's response to both communications. Nothing to say. Digital quiet only. Disguised as affection. I didn't respond. A Venmo request arrived 5 minutes later. Daniel gave me $1,000. An explanation. Family assistance, short term. The screen darkened as I continued to gaze at it. When I arrived downstairs the following morning, Janice was already up. You should see this, she replied, glancing out the window. A folded takeout menu from a diner 5 streets away was hidden behind my car's windshield wiper, written with a bold blue pen on the back. Your family still includes us. Quit behaving strangely. We weren't brought up this way. No signature, no name, that's all. About 2 to 14 in the morning, I looked at the security camera. A figure came up the driveway. Act quickly. Although the face was hidden, Daniel's haughtiness was evident in the way they moved. There was no message. It served as a warning. They weren't simply impoverished, they were going in a spiral. Later that day, Marie texted me to let me know they had abruptly gone. One of her cats hadn't returned inside since she took half a pack of steaks out of the freezer. Victor. Suddenly, the landlord to whom I had ceased sending money phoned. I thought it had to do with anything else, but it wasn't. He said that Daniel had called him earlier to inquire as to whether I had reinstituted the payment plan, claimed to be attempting to move back in. Victor stated that he thought he would verify before responding. I was honest with him. It's been days since I spoke to them. They now have a problem if they are phoning you. He just answered, I understand, and hung up. Janice closed all the doors twice that night. I had a hunch they wouldn't stop at messages and takeout menus, so I positioned a baseball bat next to the bed without telling her. I ought to have seen they weren't done. The takeout menu on the windshield, the Venmo demands, and the messages. They weren't arbitrary actions. They served as trial runs searching for weaknesses. It was early May, a Saturday. There was a deceptive calm in the weather, when there is no sense of urgency. However, everything is awaiting action. The front porch camera alerted me when I woke up. 6 to 17 a.m. As the coffee brewed, I watched the video. Daniel sat motionless on the porch as if he was considering knocking but decided against it. He was pacing a little, his hood up, his hands buried in his jacket, as if he wished to be discovered but not challenged. He departed after 23 minutes, never once glanced at the camera. When Janice descended, she saw the screen's frozen frame. We have to leave the house today, she remarked. Inhale actual air. She was not mistaken. The home felt more like a bunker now. We left at about 11 in the morning, strolled through the neighborhood farmer's market, purchased expensive bread that we didn't need, and for the first time in days, we even discussed taking a vacation. We experienced normalcy. It lasted for precisely 4 hours. Upon our return, I saw that the rear gate was open rather than wide, just a little bit open, as if someone had neglected to completely close it. Every time I shut it, inside, all the time. At first, everything appeared to be normal. The living room, not touched, the kitchen, all right. But then I saw that the top drawer of the cabinet in the hallway was open. It had been months since anyone had touched that drawer. I peered inside. Numerous tax documents had been combed through. A few envelopes had been ripped open. There was no mortgage-labeled folder. After that, we proceeded quickly, examined each room. Janice discovered that one of her jackets was gone from the closet in the hall. My parka for the winter. Before I acquired a better one, I wore this one, also gone. They had been inside, not to rob, not to ruin, to remind us. While on the phone, Janice dialed the police. I strolled around the house's side. The birdhouse. I'm not sure why that struck me at that moment. We used to store a plastic film canister and an extra key underneath it when we first moved in years ago. I raised the birdhouse. The canister had vanished. I knew what the police would say when they got there. No indication of a forced entrance. Someone with a key, most likely. I informed them who it was, most likely. The policeman inquired, "Have you got evidence that they were inside?" I stated, "There were no cameras in the house." "Well," he said, "unless they return, there's not much we can do, and they most likely will." It was a different night. Janice seemed more than simply worn out. She seemed resigned. I allowed them in that first night at around 10, she added. I believed I was doing honorably. I was warned. You did. We are even locking doors within our own home. She didn't sound like she was pleading for pardon. As if she had finished forgiving, she stated it. I launched my laptop and wrote the type of message that is sent just once. It was given to each member of the family who had ever requested a favor. A ride, a transfer by wire? I stated it clearly. For 3 years, I covered Daniel's and Linda's rent. I took them to New York by plane. They said it was a pastime and abandoned my book launch. My residence was broken into. I was stolen from, and they were strangers from now on. Most didn't respond. Some people read the message but remained silent. Blake, a cousin, sent a single emoji of a thumbs up. I got my locks replaced 2 days later, each and every one. We began creating a no-contact notice after Janice phoned a lawyer her work had advised. Although it was primarily symbolic, it provided us with a task and a way to reclaim our space. Weeks went by. Until the envelope arrived, there were no unexpected texts, late-night visits, or mysterious notes. No address for return. A handwritten letter for the 3 times was inside. It has 6 words as well. This award was yours. All right. No signature. It was Daniel's handwriting, though. For a long time, I gazed at the note. Just 6 words. All of it was pulled back to the surface by that. This prize was yours. All right. At first, Janice didn't want to see it. Claimed it could have been old. Still, I gave it to her. After reading it once, she walked it directly to the shredder without saying a word. Mine wasn't shredded by me. It was stored in the drawer beside my desk. Not because I'm afraid. As a reminder, we heard nothing the next week. No enigmatic footfall on the porch, no texts and no knocks. It seemed to be a stalemate, as if both sides were anticipating the other's next move. Then I received a call from my employer's human resources department. I had been the subject of an anonymous tip. Claimed that I had been detected utilizing corporate resources for personal gain, and that I was using them to advertise my side business writing. The grievance was thorough, particular. Dates were specified. I left the workplace early in order to write for organizations that I'm a part of. Screenshots taken from the website of my creator. Everything. It was total shit. I don't write when I'm at work. I never did. I don't even use my work laptop to check my author email. However, the harm had already been done. I had to endure an interview for compliance. Even though my boss claimed to know it was nonsense, they still had to record the incident. They told me that the complaint was submitted online using an encrypted form when I inquired if they could track it down. I didn't need a name, yet I had none. I was certain of its sender. They weren't merely tampering with our area anymore, so even though Janice encouraged me to let it go, I couldn't. They were attempting to take advantage of my income. All of a sudden, the thing they derided as a pastime became something that could be attacked. I called the attorney once more and inquired about my choices. Maybe something might be done, he suggested, if I could connect them to the complaint. It would be difficult to show purpose otherwise. That week, I didn't get much sleep. Janice received a phone call 2 days later. Unknown figure, voicemail. My mom was the one. She did not specify her location. She had only been hoping that we would reconcile and forgive one another. She acknowledged that I had acted out of rage and that there had been misunderstandings. She mentioned that Linda and Daniel were having difficulties and I needed to keep in mind that we were related. That evening, Janice erased the message after saving it and playing it for me once. Our garbage can was overturned. Nothing was stolen. It was simply thrown out and abandoned in the center of the driveway. I looked at the porch cam footage. The same attitude, same hooded person. However, they faced the camera straight this time, for a moment only. Then he turned and entered the dock. I didn't immediately respond to it. Examine the camera. I played it back several times. Seeing Daniel's unblinking gaze as he looked directly into the lens he wasn't concealing. He was communicating to me that he was still circling around out there. I'm still certain that I owe him money. You didn't use a metaphor when you said, "This award find out?" It was a proclamation, and at last I realized what I was up against. Janice stated it rather plainly the following morning. There is no stopping them. They must be stopped. So I did. I started by transferring the storage for our home security system to a private cloud, backup in real time. More cameras, one over the garage and one toward the backyard. Then I got in touch with a college buddy of mine who started working in private security. I told him everything. I hadn't even told Janice the details. Each wire transfer, every favor, each time they went too far. I also didn't say anything. This isn't family, he said. This file is a case. He recommended a certified private investigator. I had a folder containing everything in 2 days. Near Newark, Daniel and Linda had been living in a duplex that had been condemned. The windows have a little plywood on them. No power. A neighbor's house was providing them with water. They were sleeping on mattresses they discovered on the curb after scanning their way into a side entrance. Daniel registered a burner phone under a fictitious identity. After becoming wealthy and abandoning his family for fame, he had been attempting to get in touch with everybody we knew, including former coworkers, classmates, and distant cousins, and making up stories about me. Notoriety. Sales of my book had not even reached 4 figures. My mom, the PI verified, had relocated to Allentown in secret and was lodging with a cousin I didn't really know. She hadn't informed Linda or Daniel. Still, she went above and above what I had anticipated. Copies of the report were attached to 2 official stop and desist letters, which I printed out. Daniel have one. For Linda one. Legalese. Icy and accurate, their messages, the video, the note, and the Venmo demands were all listed. I also marked the timestamp in a snapshot of Daniel looking into our camera. I had Janice sign them. We mailed them the necessary certified return receipt, but I wasn't finished. I forwarded a copy of the results to Victor, their former landlord, who was responsible for paying for their eviction. I made no recommendations. I just emailed the letter, the address, and the pictures. I assumed you might be curious about the residents of 2008-19 Hillcrest. That evening, Victor gave me a call. He just murmured, "Thank you," and hung up. That meant something to me. I was also aware that it would not change the past. Nothing would. However, I have now drawn the line. Of course. Lawfully. In public. Janice and I went upstate in a cabin for 6 days the same week. No cameras, no email, no service. Just a fireplace, literature, and walks. It was too slow to ignite. We never once discussed them. I watched the surveillance footage once we returned. Nothing. No movement, no notes, no notifications. Only birds and wind. Occasionally, a delivery man would leave a package on our porch. I waited for a response for something, but until the last parcel arrived, there was nothing but stillness. No address for return. Little white box. Daniel had taken my old sweatshirt when he was staying with us, and it was inside. Nicely folded. In a Ziploc bag, sealed. Not a word. Just a single word on a scrap of paper. All right. 2 months have passed since then. I still check the cams every morning, even though I haven't heard from any of them since. I know how stories like this end, and mine isn't yet finished, not because I'm scared. The initial update. There hasn't been any noise. Too silent, if I'm telling the truth. After everything. Stand with the camera, Daniel. The phony HR report, the harassment, the break-in, and that strange last parcel. I anticipated a spectacular finale. But until last Thursday, nothing had happened. A lawyer I didn't know sent me an email. All that was said in the subject line was request for mediation estate matters. I opened it even though I thought it was spam. My father's estranged sibling, my uncle, had died according to a scanned letter with a legitimate signature and stationery. It had been more than 15 years since I last spoke to him. Evidently, he had a world that had been left unattended for over 2 years, no partner and no children. Gee. Although his inheritance was little, it contained a Vermont home, a stale savings account, and in some way my name alone. Not my mom, not Linda, nor Daniel. According to the lawyer, my uncle had even gone to my book launch and had been silently following my work. SAT behind it. Nothing was ever stated. Just came and went. I'm not sure if I believe that portion yet. Along with the will, he included a message. There were 2 lines in all. The only person who has ever completed a task is you. Take this. Take a constructive action. I'm still attempting to comprehend it. I know this, but I'm not sure what good means anymore. In months for the first time. I had no sense of being pursued. Though I didn't feel cured or pardoned, I did feel noticed. Next week, I'll take a car up there. Only me. Janice promised to accompany me as soon as I had the area organized. I believe that something new and genuine is what we need. I am aware that Reddit isn't exactly a haven for happy endings, and that the entire story has been depressing. But just know, if you've read every crazy turn and followed along, and you've ever wondered how somebody could do this to their own, I want to know. The same thing each day. However, they may not even be involved in this next episode. Perhaps the next update won't deal with threats, locks, or attorneys. I could be writing from a porch in Vermont the next time. I have coffee. There is silence everywhere. And I'll begin with something easy if it is. Finally, something positive occurred.